Member Brown? Member Childs? Member Jackson? Member Smith? Chair Frazier? You have a quorum.
As of right now, I don't see any guests, but comments from guests? Okay, no guests. Any written complaints? Approval of meeting minutes from November 19, 2024.
I move that we approve the minutes from November the 19th of 2024, please.
Motion by Brown, second by Jackson. Member Brown? Member Jackson?
Yes.
Chair Frazier?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Discover Crystal Springs Cemetery update.
We're starting to wind things down to cemetery outside activities right now, but we did get 20 hours in, split over 3 people. And still collected 2 bags of trash. We've added 2 new members to our Facebook page. We're up to 170, which we're very happy about that. We have no progress between the 2 bridges, B2 and B3. We were out Monday, driving around, we checked the grotto, we still have a nice layer of leaves down there for the resident frogs. And we have a nice flow of water coming out of it still, so we expect that to continue over winter. Our main area that we worked on the last month was in the pavilion area, and that's that map you see off to the right. It looks like a light bulb, well, a large circular shape, that's what we call the Florence Pavilion. It's about 4 feet above the bottom of the ravine and above the Morningside Road. 6 foot above that level is the actual level of the cemetery above it. So it's sort of a recess has been cut in the bank. We believe that was a covered over area, it had a wood roof over it with open sides. It was used, we believe, is for people to sit on. Soon there's probably some room for picnic tables, so they could overlook the lagoons below them. But what's unique about that pavilion, both on the right and left side, we have found two rows of 3 stone columns going down the bluff. On the right side and left side, those are the squares represented by the squares. Outside of both of those rows is a large section of pine trees. They're mature pine trees now. And we just found, we're out there Monday looking around, we found a set of steps that are on the east side of the east pines. We are already aware of there's a set of steps coming down the west side of the west pines. So this sort of symmetrical layout around this pavilion area. And also we found steps coming from around the outside pavilion and the bottom outside corners. And we believe that that was access to people to walk down from the cemetery, down the steps, across the terracing, and then down into the pavilion. And we'll be continuing working on that in the springtime next year. We're kind of surprised what we found and what was designed out there. It was really interesting. Other than that, we have no additional work that we've done. And so we're pretty much closing down the outside activities. What we'd like to do for now is go into the superintendent's office and start inventorying and documenting this and getting the records straightened out and identified and get them properly stored. And I plan to put in a spreadsheet. And when we get done with that, I would be available to the office staff and the cemetery board that know what you have out there as far as paper historical records. And we have no additional fundings for this time, but we expect to add more, spend more money if we get storage boxes for the rolled documents and maps and blueprints that are just sort of loose. Get those rolled up and get them in the containers for long-term storage. And that's all I have, and I wish everybody a happy holidays.
Thank you for that update. Any update on cemetery property / ground repairs, Mr. Little?
Not at this point. At our last discussion regarding the cemetery. Sorry. At our last staff discussions regarding the cemetery, we were trying to get in there before the snows started to come down to get the leaves and so forth out, which we did not succeed in doing, but we're still going to as soon as we get an opportunity where we can. But beyond that, there's nothing further relative to the grounds. One thing I will mention, though, is, as you probably recall, in response to a request last year about making water available where people could get water to take and so forth, we started looking into how to do that and found that there's a system out there with pumps that has been out of use for some time. I asked them to start looking at those to find out exactly what it would take to get those revived where we could start using them, and whether it would be cost effective to do so. We're of the opinion that we may be able to get that done come spring, and if so, that that system may supply water throughout the cemetery through lines that are already there. Can always be some exceptions depending on how much damage or whatever, but we're looking very closely at that and planning on come spring seeing if we can't reactivate those pumps and make it so that water is available throughout the area.
When you say we, who are you referring to? When you say we, who are you referring to?
The city.
Any certain department that works on that?
I'm sorry, say again?
Is there a certain department that works on that?
I've got both Public Works along with the engineers looking at doing that. They've gotten a hold of a couple of the pump companies that have the experience and knowledge about these pumps that are providing the information to them.
And then also to another question, when you were mentioning the leaves, now, isn't that a part of our contract with who we're contracting with for the grass, or no?
It is up to a point, as long when they're still performing work with cutting grass and that type of thing, they do that also. But once that ends, and that's typical for our area, after the grass has stopped growing and having to be cut and so forth, we still got leaves on the trees that are coming down, and that's what's left to deal with. Now, since we mentioned leaves, let me also mention I'm going to probably by the next board meeting bring to you to ask the board's consent. There's a lot of cemetery property way in the back that's not actually being used currently, that's there for when we do need it. I'm looking for a place to haul leaves to so we can spread them out and try to start having them deteriorate and compost them. Those would be not only leaves from the cemetery, but leaves from throughout the city. And what I want to propose is that we utilize some of that area until it's needed. And of course that also will bring ask engineering to take a look at how we get access back there. I don't want heavy trucks on the pathways through the cemetery or anything. But if we can do that, it may help us to dispose of these leaves without any additional cost. And while right now most of the city's leaves are bagged, so when they put them out there, they're putting them out in bags and then tearing the bags up, and would be periodically having people go out there to pull these bags so that they aren't looking crazy or whatnot and so forth. But the bigger plan is I'm also trying to pursue funding to get one of these big leaf vacs. You may have seen them in other communities where leaves pushed out into the curb or other places, and this machine just goes by, vacuums them up, and puts them in a container and then haul them out and spread them and so forth. That will enable us to provide better service with what happens with leaves at the cemetery as well as in other places within the city.
And your plan right now is to bring that information by next meeting? Okay. Do we have any other updates on the grounds upkeep, flowers, et cetera, notification of families? It seems like it's pretty much calmed down and that is being taken care of. I know it's been a process.
It has, and a great deal of thanks and appreciation to Darrell for the role that he's played in helping to do that, both in removing a lot of the stuff as well as communicating with the people who had questions and concerns. The complaints seem to have dissipated, and people seem to be pleased with the more organized and better look of the cemetery.
Yes, I had a lot of call-ins through last week and even this week. A lot of the people called in thanking for the cleanup in the cemetery, all the decorations removed on Napier's front side. Now what we're doing is either it's wintertime, it's slow, but we study moving back towards the back of the cemetery to also do the same thing. But as I noticed this week, people have been going out there now in the back, removing their stuff as well. So it has been a pleasure to see that. And I'm glad to see it because it keep me from taking the bags and putting them in the back for public works. They've been taking the stuff out of the bags and taking them home. I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks, Darrell, for your work. Any updates on cemetery personnel?
No, ma'am, there is no update currently, and I honestly don't anticipate that there will be through the end of this budget cycle. Hold just. I say that because you may recall, and I'm a straight shooter, I try to just give you the information as honestly and straightforward as I can. When this year's budget was approved, as I recall, the budget actually showed a surplus of about $46,000, something of that nature. The reality is that budget, I believe, showed about $500,000, around $500,000 to pay for the city's insurance. That insurance, has gone up to $700,000. In addition to that, the budget handles a deficit of between 2 and 2.5 million for the year that is attributable to the water plant. We are working on trying to get a solution to that. All of this stuff is tied together. Likewise, the cemetery. There's no budget in there for the cemetery. There are no levies for the cemetery, but we are covering the costs from the general fund budget of cutting the grass, which was a significant amount of money, doing trimming trees, trying to take care of the pathways through the cemetery, whatever's necessary to try to keep it going and keep it functional. Money wasn't specifically budgeted for that, but we consider it important enough. And I don't mind saying that I personally am very interested in, supportive of the cemetery, appreciate the commitment and the work that you all are doing, and you all also, because it's a situation that was just left to us, kind of like the water one is. Circumstances are such that with the state, federal involvement, other stuff going on regarding water, we didn't have much of a choice. It was at the top of the list. City Commission said we want to maintain our water facility, and the state was saying, then you got some choices to make, and you're going to have to show us and prove to us how you're going to do it. August 31st, they required that the city respond to them with a letter responding to their TMF, Technical, Managerial, and Financial Study. I did that, and it basically outlined to them. And the reason I'm explaining that here is because this thing is like the old neck bone connected to the backbone and leg bone. All of it's coming out of that same pot. Budgeted or not, I'm spending the money to do this stuff. So I have to handle it in a limited fashion consistent with our ability to do it. So one of the, we explained to them, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to reduce and contain and control cost at the water facility as much as we could, partly by eliminating the city's part of the operations and contracting the whole facility. We think we're going to save significant monies that will help to reduce the amount of that yearly deficit by doing that. Our long-term explanations, our expectations are that we anticipate building up again our water customers so that we eliminate that big deficit that's there. When we saw recently in the newspaper that the state legislature had approved changes in state law that impacted companies that want to come into this area and put these data centers in. Now, those data centers require 10, 20, and more acres of property. We don't have that in the city. Our neighbors, the township, do have that kind of property. They supply water to themselves, the township, and other surrounding communities on this side of the river, as we did prior to the emergency managers. But they're nearing capacity. And at some point, if these data centers go in, they'll be faced with a choice of either making additional capital investment to increase their capacity, or, as we're proposing to them, let us be your partner, and we will sell you water wholesale. Our plant is a 12 million gallon a day production plant. It had the ability to supply everybody on this side plus before the change was made. We still have that ability. We would be thrilled to partner with the township to help have data centers or other large businesses come in and we sell them water at a wholesale price where they can mark it up and make some profit on it, and it would start to eliminate some of our deficit. So everybody would win. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking at, and they're all going to take time, and they're all happening at the same time. While I'm likewise trying to get new homes built, increasing water customers as well as increasing population and so forth, businesses that are developing and so forth that require additional water. And as that takes place, as we eliminate that deficit, it gives us greater ability to be able to turn around and start to respond to working with needs like the cemetery board, and hopefully at some point in the future to begin to address helping the cemetery get personnel and whatnot to be able to do some of these things. That's sort of what the longer range plan is here for trying to do this thing. But I think it's important that you understand that some of the stuff that's not happening, it's not happening because we don't care. We care greatly. I consider that cemetery to be a tremendous asset of the city, as I do Dollar Ride, Housing Commission, Library. And I might also add, and at one of the upcoming meetings, I'm going to have Dane Rasmussen, my assistant that's working on Ox Creek, come in and give you a presentation on Ox Creek, because this Ox Creek project will run right through past the cemetery just before it gets to Napier and cross over Napier to go up to where ultimately we're looking at a access point being right behind where the new Chick-fil-A is being built. And that too is going to positively impact our desire for helping to beautify and clean up and make that cemetery what it ought to be. And we love the work that you all are doing, and I'm looking for some ways to try to provide some help to you too. And George, we thank you for what you do. And we're going to keep working at trying to do better.
Okay, thank you for the update. Next, new business, transfer of funds for burials.
Your amount from November 19th to November 26th is $9,925. November 19th through November 26th, $9,925.
If I might add to that the total amount that was paid in over that period, part of October and November, it's about $37,480. But I think, as she said, only 9 something has been transferred. The finance unit is working with the funeral homes to resolve a discrepancy that's there with, so we can, and once we get that done, we'll get the rest paid over to them. I don't have the details on exactly what the discrepancy is, but I know they're working on it.
So in other words, you're saying that the funeral home owes more money.
Present circumstances, that's right.
Okay, also, just in mentioning that before we vote on the transfer of funds, I also want to say that I'm still waiting for an actual account of how the funds, what's coming in, and so we're getting an account of that as a cemetery board.
May be misunderstanding something. That's what I was just relaying, that what came in over that period is 37,480. But there, as I said, there's something they've got to get reconciled with that. And am I misunderstanding that this isn't what you're looking for?
Yes, it is what we're looking for, but just from here on out, getting something, and you did express that you had to get with the person that does
Yes.
this, so that we have something in writing that we
Okay.
can see
Very good.
as a board. Thank you.
All right.
Question on that in reference to the funeral home. This question I'd like to direct to George. What is the procedure paying for plots? Isn't that paid up front that you don't?
Before when dividing the ground, we're given a check by the funeral home for the. Before we put the body in the ground, yeah.
Right. What type of discrepancy would it be with the funeral home in reference?
Unless somebody tells me, and then I have to
So what? They give you the check,
give me the check.
and you in turn gives it to the city.
Bring it down to Tiffany after.
Okay. And so they would know, the finance department would know if the checks were good or not. Oh, okay.
So just to clear that up, they don't deposit. He doesn't deposit. He brings it here for it to be deposited. So,
That's correct.
all right, if we can vote on the transfer of these funds now. I vote that the transfer be made for the funds.
Motion by Frazier, second by Childs. Member Childs? Yes. Member Jackson? Yes. Member Brown? Yes. Chair Frazier?
Yes.
Motion carried.
2025 Cemetery Board meeting schedule, as it states, if everybody can take a quick look and see if that's going to still work for us or not. I'm okay with it.
You know, Chairperson, I would just say that we skipped January. Here it is, December the 12th. Nothing has changed other than transferring of funds with the limited burials in the winter. The only thing we could possibly talk about in January is this $27,000 difference. And if that's been resolved. But other than that, I just say we just go to February the 11th and hopefully have something fruitful to discuss. But that's just me.
Well, let's put the vote on the floor. I do vote that we don't have a meeting in January and start on February the 11th. So,
Member Jackson? Member Brown? Member Childs? Chair Frazier?
yes.
Motion carried.
That was the quickest vote ever. Comments from the board?
Well, I'm really thankful and glad that you got this stuff in the cemetery moving forward, thanks to the city manager. You know, I'm thrilled to death, really, because
Yes, Madam Chair. To City Manager, Mr. Little, you said that in reference to this budget cycle, there would not be any fundings for the cemetery. The budget cycle that goes to July 30th.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's important to understand too, as it comes time to go into that next budget cycle, it's going to depend on exactly what the financial picture looks like as to whether I can make any change or not.
Will the board have any input in reference to that budgeting?
Very honestly, no.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, do we, in reference to the budget, how would you go about budgeting for the cemetery?
As I've had to do through this period, I'll have to look to utilize funds that I've got in the public works area because it's mostly a form of public works.
Let's look at the personnel for the cemetery. You would need a person in the office and some grave diggers.
When we get to where we can do that, yes, that would be necessary.
That's what
But-
you would be looking at.
And definition of person in the office would have to be somebody with sufficient skills to kind of oversee for you what's going on at the total situation there. Not only the workers being there when they're supposed to, doing what they're supposed to do, but also tracking and keeping of records and whatnot to do that, and sort of working through a transition with sea management in terms of working side by side for a period until, and that's going to take a while to do that.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's the situation with a lot of this stuff. It didn't happen overnight. It took a long time, and unraveling it is going to do the same thing.
Right. Now, if it is properly, has the proper personnel, would that eliminate the grass cutters? Because before, I think the personnel at the cemetery did the grass cutting, didn't they?
Let me just say it could, but at this point, it's just speculation. It would depend upon how many people, what basic skills they have, and that kind of thing. So we're quite a ways yet from that.
Okay. Okay. Now, you said it's dependent upon some programs or some development that's going to be taking place in the future, reference to some homes and some data-based businesses, and to be able to increase the amount of money that's taken in on with water. So really, what happens with the cemetery is contingent on what happens with those various programs. If those programs do not pan out, so that means that there won't be any money coming in for the personnel and the self-sufficiency of the cemetery.
That's correct, sir. Okay. And in fact, what we're doing is not only looking to reduce those areas that are obviously contributing to the deficit, but I'm looking at everything that the city spends money on to try to identify areas that we can save money in. For instance, probably nobody thinks about things like, what is the electric bill for City Hall a month? What's the electric bill for the water plant for a month? What's the cost for gas bills? Is there anything we could do different? I have a different approach to this kind of stuff than many people do because I come out of a business background before I ever got into government. And so I'm taking all that stuff apart and looking for ways to save money. And by finding ways to save money and reduce deficits is how I look to find money to do better in areas like the cemetery and a number of other things that we're trying to do. It's on the back burner behind the cemetery, but some point on my list, I want 200 Pawpaw back up and running again for the purpose it was initially intended. Exactly, as an incubator. And that may take a couple of years before we get there more, but it's on the agenda.
Now, in reference to the water and increasing customers, when the Harbor Shores finish their golf course, is any monies coming into the city in reference to them watering their golf course?
No. It appears there was no formal agreement to do that.
So it could be some of the same thing that happened moving forward with the other program. But anyway, the money in the minutes for the cost of the grade, I'll be through here in a minute. What was it, $900 and $1,200?
$950 for 95% of the, those around the ravine, which not very many lots left, is 1,100, but
Now, does that include opening and closing?
no. Opening and closing is another 950. And to put the vault in and put the lid on it is 195.
Okay, so then the entire amount goes to the city, right? Goes into the city.
Yeah, I bring the entire amount down.
And what is, city management, charge on it?
At the present time, it comes on back to them, 'cause that's the way it was set up,
Come on back to who?
to the city management.
Everything. Okay, thank you.
Nothing else from the board? Okay, I close this meeting at 2:12 p.m.
Member Brown? Member Childs? Member Jackson? Yes. Chair Frazier?
Yes.
Motion carried.
And again, thanks everybody, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.